Hi guys, welcome back to the Bible.
It's a podcast where we take yours and our questions and go back to the Bible and find out what God has to say. But today's episode, and I guess the next couple episodes, are a little different. They're a little bit more sentimental.
Yeah, there's a twist. So we're going to start doing our own experiences and sharing our stories on how we found God, because I feel like a lot of us can wonder, like, well, how is God real? And
I feel like also we've had this podcast for a couple, I think this episode marks our 2 months.
Wait, isn't it our 8th episode?
This is our 8th episode, so this is our 2-month anniversary, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like it's time that you guys know more about us.
And I feel like we should, find out our testimonies. A lot of times we talk about the Bible, but like, how do we know?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And you guys can even comment questions for us to answer too.
Yeah.
Like little Q&A.
As deep as you want, as not deep as you want, like, it's up to you guys. We're open and honest and ready to answer.
Yes.
And if not, we'll do our study. We'll
do
go
our
back
best.
to the Bible.
Yeah, we will do our best.
But yeah. I forgot what I was going to say. I forgot I was going to start. Okay, all right. Wait, no.
We're doing Julieta's.
She's a little nervous
Oh,
today.
yes.
Little testimony.
I am a little nervous. Can you tell?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. Well, okay. No.
Just go for it.
Okay. Well, it all started once upon a time. My story starts at the beginning of the story, right? Like all stories do. And this, like, what I'm going to say some parts that aren't going to make sense till later. But it all started, like, when I was in the womb.
Oh, yeah.
My mom was pregnant with me.
Or it started for a lot of us, no?
I think all.
Yeah, hopefully. She got dropped off by a stork. They actually do exist, guys.
Oops.
Well, I was supposed to be born the 27th because my mom had, or March 27th because my mom had a scheduled C-section. But, like, the 25th, there's, like, my baby isn't moving around. And so someone had told her, like, hey, you should have a soda. And she was kind of like, well, my baby isn't moving around because I guess I was, like, a energetic baby in the womb. And so my mom was like, I don't feel my baby. Something's wrong. And someone told her, like, you should have a soda. Like, that'll definitely, like, move her around. Maybe she's just sleeping.
She'll get gassy.
And so she took the soda and then nothing had happened. So then she was like, oh, no, wait, like, something's wrong. Like, something's actually wrong. So she went to the doctors, and the doctor told her, like, no, this is, like, an emergency C-section, and you're going to have to, like, have the C-section now. And it was the 26th. And then, so they had it. And then at the end of the thing, the guy was like, the guy said something to my mom. It was like, I don't know who had an angel, whether it was you or I. Which, I don't know what that means. Like, okay, it doesn't matter. And then later on in life, I grew up in church, I got baptized when I was 6, and my parents were really in church. But moving to the United States, they knew that they had to depend on God to help them. Like, it wasn't going to be on their own.
Yeah.
And so
the U.S. for immigrants is not easy. Like,
No.
I don't know if anybody watching is an immigrant or tried to, like, come into the country. It's not easy.
Oh, no.
It's not
Okay,
easy.
no,
at
but
all.
we
Especially
came
by yourself with no help.
No,
Oh,
we
yeah.
came
Or no
legally.
family.
Like, we
Well,
didn't, like,
not
think.
even, like,
it was, like,
legally or not legally, like, it's hard to get adjusted to the U.S. because it's very different. Like,
Yeah.
very different from Latin
And, like,
countries.
my parents had been here before. Like, we came for a Disney trip, and then after the year after that, they were like, okay, wait, we went to Disney, and, like, we love it. Like, we love, like, driving around here. Like, we love it. And so then the year later, they stayed there for a month, and they were kind of like, hey, whatever. And also my cousin, like, had just signed to be a baseball player.
Oh,
And so,
I
like,
didn't know that.
They were all around this, and so it was kind of like, yeah, let's move, like, whatever. He's gonna be working here. And so they brought me, and we all flew. It was my first time on a plane, and it was so nice and pretty. And then we came, and everything was so hard the first 2 years, but that has nothing to do, whatever. Then I got baptized when I was 6, and then when I was around 8 or 9, my mom got sick. So my mom has lupus, and so lupus is a antibody that it, like, cells that are antibody that attack parts of your body
It's
without
an
knowing.
autoimmune system.
Exactly. And so my mom, at some point, she didn't know, like, what was going on. But at some point, she did know what was going on, but they didn't have, like, treatment for her. And so one of the days, they were just like, okay, take this pill. Like, you'll be fine. Like, you won't be nauseous, whatever. Because my mom, like, she used to, like, have allergies and stuff. Like, this will calm you down. And then my mom had taken this pill, and then we went home. And then she came out, and at the time, like, I knew that my mom was sick, but I didn't know, like, what was going on. I didn't know, like, why she was sick. To me, like, it wasn't that serious. Like, of course, you're going to hide it from your kid, and you're not going to tell them, like, hey, your mom's sick and your mom has lupus, and also, like, she's struggling with her heart, you know?
And you were, like, what, 8 or 9
I
at
was,
that
like, 8 or
point?
9, yeah.
So you're, like, a little kid, like, a little baby.
Yeah, and so they, like, didn't tell me anything, but I knew that, like, something was wrong because, like, that same day my mom, like, fainted in front of me, and that was, like, one of the hardest, like, I was like, oh, wait, like, something's actually, like, wrong. And, like, nothing else other than, like, her flare-ups and stuff. Like, I didn't know that it was that serious. And then we were in the car, and, like, I don't remember much about my mom's sickness. Like, at the time, I didn't know what was going on. And so I like, when they talk about it, I'm kind of like, I wasn't present because I don't know actually, like, you know. And so, like, the moment I do truly remember about her sickness is her fainting and the car ride to the emergency room after that. Because she would go in and out, in and out, in and out. And my dad was speeding. So my mom would be like, even if she was fainting and doing all this extra stuff, she was like, no, don't speed, don't speed. And, of course, I didn't know this. So, like, now they tell their testimony. But my mom got to the place, and it was so bad that they, like, had to, like, take her by helicopter. So it was a 5-minute ride.
Oh, wow.
Instead of, like, driving, like, 40 minutes. And so they told my dad, like, okay, you're going to stay here, but just know that your wife has a 60% chance of living or 60% chance of dying. And also you have to sign her up for heart transplants because her heart is failing. And, like, you're going to, like, what? Like, my wife is dying and you're just, like, telling me, like, nothing? And so
there's 2 kids, too, that you have to think of because you and your little sister.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of scary. I don't, like...
But I didn't know any of this. Like, I was on my own, so, like, I was good. And so then after that, they kind of tell their story. And my mom she, like, at the time, whatever, like, this had happened. And then it was kind of like I forgot about it. Mom was in and out of the hospital until they found a treatment for her. And then my parents would be like, oh, yeah, like, God saved, like, her life. My dad didn't grow up, like, religious. My dad was Catholic his whole life, and even though he got baptized, I feel like he never, like, was there as much as my mom was. And I feel like now he talks about it, and it's like his testimony too.
Yeah.
And it's so, like, you didn't go through that, but you knew too, you know. And my mom, like, talks about how, like, God has, like, helped her and healed her, and I would be like, what are you talking about? Like, okay, yeah, God, sure. I think you're just over dramatic, like, because I didn't know the whole story. And then it wasn't until I experienced my own stuff that I was kind of like, okay, you know, I kind of know what you're talking about.
Sense.
But okay, then 6th grade came, and I feel like I've always had, like, a want to, like try bad stuff. Like, I've always been inclined to, like,
we all go through that.
do bad stuff. Like, I was having a little...
Julieta the rebel.
Yeah. Oh, no.
I was going through a little rebellious phase. So when I went to public school, my first year... Because I went to public school from 1st grade to 6th grade. And so that was my first year. And I was kind of like, wow, everything's here now. Like, I can try whatever I want. And so I kind of, like, I was hanging out with the wrong people. So, of course, that led me to do the wrong things. And eventually my parents were like... I didn't have the best relationship with my parents at the time. Just because, like, my school ended at 4. And the bus would take forever. Like, my bus sucked. And the bus wouldn't pick me up till 6, and I wouldn't get home till, like, 6:30.
That's
wow,
insane.
12 hours of school.
And so I would go, like, in the morning, I would wake up alone. I would go to school. I would come home, and usually, like, no one was there. And so it was just me. Or they probably were there, but I was so, like, not there, like, in my head that I never, like, that whole year, I don't remember, like, coming home to my parents. Like, I would go home, I would get ready for bed, and I would go to bed, and that would be the same cycle over and over. I didn't remember church. I don't remember church. When I was in 6th grade, I don't remember one day of church.
Dang.
But, like, literally, I don't know what, like, I don't know where my head was at. But I don't remember having a relationship with my parents. I don't remember going to church. Like, I don't remember any Sundays. All I remember was hanging with my friends, skipping first period. Like, that's all we, like, did. And my parents were, like, halfway through the year, they were like, wait, like, something's wrong. Like, this is not supposed to be you. And so they were like, we're going to go do all of this, and next year you're not going to public school anymore. So, you know, start saying bye. And
Start saying bye.
At least they prepared you.
Like, start detaching, because this is not how you're going to end up. And so I was kind of like, oh, okay, well, no, you're wrong, because I'm actually going to go there or whatever. And I was really against like going because they wanted to put me in a Christian school, a private Christian school, and I was like, no. And so little rebellious Julieta.
11-year-old.
I'm not gonna go.
10, 11.
That's crazy. In 6th grade, you're like 10 or 11. That's how
Yeah.
young you are. I was 11 in 6th grade.
Yeah,
It was probably, 10?
And now when I think about it, I'm like, what were you doing? Like, and you don't realize it like until you grow up, and you're kind of like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then the summer before I went to my new Christian school, I decided to get a little rebellious, and so I started hanging out with like this guy, and you know that never like goes right, especially when like God is not in the picture, how you were talking about. And so I ended up I ended up finding myself in a really like dark place, and I feel like God spoke to me, or like I had an encounter with God when I was like hopeless and I didn't have anything, and I was kind of like, well, I've ruined my life, so now what? And so I was like sitting in my mom's bed, and I was crying my eyes out because I was like, you know, like you kind of see no future. You're like kind of like, okay, well, now what? You know, like this is it.
Especially when you're not surrounded by people who have a heart for Jesus, it's very isolating. Yeah. It's very lonely, and it's very there's no, at least you feel like there's no way to go forward, if that makes sense. Like there's no future, and you feel so like enclosed, and like, which obviously all of that like ends up leading to depression and like more serious things if you don't find the right help or the right people to surround yourself, which is why it's so important to know who is surrounding you and know why you're doing the things you're doing.
Yeah, because getting closer to God by yourself, it's like, I mean, it's not hard. But when you're at a young age where everything around you, people younger, like when you were to 6th grade, they get so easily influenced. So it's so hard for you to, like, stick out. And
all my friends were older than me.
Exactly.
So they knew, like, more. And
they've
I was
experienced more. And it's hard. Finding God isn't the hard part. It's staying with God. Yeah. That is the hardest battle.
Especially when you're so easily influenced at a young age and you have terrible influences around you. Like, it's so easy for you to fall into these habits you shouldn't be falling into. It's so easy to pick the secular, the worldly, or the physical route than it is to pick the godly route, especially when you don't have a good example around you.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that's where I kind of found myself. And I don't remember, like, ever having a real prayer until I was, like, heartbroken. Because that's when you kind of like, but I want this, God. I want this. And I knew that God, I knew what people said about church. Like, I went to church. I knew who God was. Like, I heard about God, but I didn't necessarily know him. It was kind of just like, okay, he's there. And so it wasn't until I started having my own prayers that I was like, please, God, like, this is what I want. Like, please, please, please. Like, you're the only one who can heal me. You're the only one who can do all this stuff. And then when I finally started, like, you know, getting over that, I went to church once, and we were talking about stuff, and I'm not going to get, like, too into detail about it, but we were talking about something, and they were just saying
grown-up conversation.
Yeah.
Basically.
Right. And they were just describing people who do certain sins as, like, stupid and all this stuff. And, like, hearing that from a church person, I was like, what? Like, you're telling me this, like, then I'm actually ruined then. And so I would go home and I would just, like, cry to God because, like, I was messed up. I had done all this stuff. I thought I had no future. And so the first image of God was, like, God redeemed me. Because then I started feeling, like, forgiven. Like, it didn't matter what anyone said. And then once I started going to the Christian school, I started learning more about God. I finally started learning the Bible in English. Because I never went to a Christian school, and so they never taught me the Bible in English. I always knew it in Spanish. And so I never knew anything about God in the language that I really, like, understood. And it wasn't until I went to this Christian school, and I was surrounded by real people and real friends, that I was like, my friends sucked. My friends sucked. The people I thought were my friends, girl, they were not your friends. Your friends, like, truly, like, the first friend I made, shout out to my friend Emma. Okay. She was literally... Emma and Anna, they were, like, real friends. They were, like, my first real friends that I can say, like, they knew my heart. They always, like, looked for the better in me. Never did they put me down. Never did they influence me to do anything bad. Because real friends, they're going to tell you, like, hey.
It's not that bad. Like, just do it. Like, come on. Like,
that's what fake friends are going to do. But your real friend is going to say, why are you doing that? Like, don't go down that thing. Don't go down that path again, whatever. And they encouraged me so much. And it was kind of like I finally saw. And another thing, let me tell you another thing. How forgiving my parents were. Like, my parents knew about everything I was doing, and yet they forgave me. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, yeah, my parents didn't care about what I was doing, because that's fake. Don't try to start putting things on my parents, saying that my parents didn't look after me or any of that. I didn't care to look, or I didn't care about what my parents thought about me. They knew they wanted to help me. And just because I was closed off and stubborn and rebellious doesn't mean that I didn't have bad parents. But yeah, and they were the most, like, kind and forgiving and patient with me. And I will always be so grateful that I have parents like that. Because, like, some parents, like, kick their kids out and they hate them for life. But, like, the closest thing I have to God is my parents. Like, I love them. And
why am I about to cry? This is too cute.
Okay, the video is. I'm sweating. It's so hot.
It's just
I
you.
see you sweating.
I'm literally like.
Are you nervous?
Sweating. I don't know. It's hot. I swear it's hot.
You're
It's
right
not
under
that
the
hot.
thing. I was freezing. I put it up like 2 degrees. It was at 74. I was freezing.
No, I'm sweating.
Okay, we'll put it up.
Okay,
I mean, we'll put it
back
down after
later.
the podcast.
Yeah. After you sweat it all out. You know?
After it's too late. But yeah. And so my parents were always so forgiving and loving, and okay, this is another thing. This is a spiritual growth. 6th grade, I had no relationship with my parents. I didn't know anything about them. Gosh, I barely knew their name. And
Wow.
That's insane.
I know my parents I know everything about my parents.
You're going to get scolded after this episode.
I was so encouraged to be like, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? Why did you go to college for that? How was your child life like? I can say that I truly know my parents, especially when they show those videos where they sit all the family members at the table and they're like, what's your dad's favorite color?
Yeah, what is your dad's favorite color?
My dad doesn't have a favorite color.
Wow.
My mom's favorite color she doesn't have a favorite color. My dad's favorite candy is a milk chocolate. My mom's favorite candy is dark chocolate. Helen's favorite animal is bunnies.
You gotta get to know your sister. Watch out, Helen. Watch.
Bunnies. Yeah. And okay, it doesn't
I'm gonna
matter.
ask her when we get out after the
See if
episode.
Julieta was right. Does she really know?
But other than like basic facts, like I actually feel like I can say I know my parents. But okay, anyways, after that, I did my first year of school in Christian school. Kind of gonna speed run this. Okay, I kind of went to Christian school, and then my uncle was like, "Hey, you should start a digital ministry. Like that would fit you so well." And I was like, hell no. Like, what are my friends gonna think about me? What are my own friends gonna think about me?
No.
I am never doing that in my life. Mark my words. I was so
Dang,
like,
look
I was so
at you now.
stubborn. I was so like, I can't. Little 12-year-old. And so that summer I was like, I have nothing to lose. I might as well do it. Like I felt something in my heart. Like God was telling me like, do it. And so I did it. And I did my first video in a bathroom. And then from
In
there,
a bathroom.
yeah, in a bathroom because the lighting's so good.
Oh, that's actually real.
Period.
Like if you have a good bathroom, it has good lighting.
Yep.
Mhm.
And so after that kind of like everything
Fell
started
into
sparking
place.
up. And my relationship with God didn't really like start. Like I didn't really get to know God until after like I started doing that because it forced me to like look. It forced me to look and be like, okay, God is not only Redeemer because he saved me. God is also provider. God is also faithful. God is also loving. God is also this. God is also that. But to me, the first thing that God was to me was Redeemer because he forgave me. And my favorite story in the Bible is like the woman that was bleeding for 12 years. Because the only thing she had to do was have faith and touch like his garments to feel like she was forgiving. And so that's one of my favorite stories in the Bible. Like people who are redeemed. Like, oh my gosh. What's her name? Mary. And how she was like,
Mary Magdalene.
yes. What was she?
She was she had a
She
bunch
was suicidal.
of demons.
Yes, she had a bunch of demons. And God looked at her and called her by her name and did all this stuff. Like none of it mattered. And like for once, like nothing defines you. Like no one can say like, oh, she's a girl that is a prostitute. She's a girl that did this. Like God looks at you and he's like, no, you're not none of that to me. Like you're Julieta and I have a purpose for you. And it felt like for once, like I wasn't defined by anything. Like, I wasn't defined by a word. I was way more than, like, whatever people said about me. I was way more than my mistakes. And for once, I feel like I could know God to a deeper level. And I had such a, like, spark for him. Like, I wanted to, like, search people and look for people to love and do other stuff. Like, it was a fire growing inside of me. And, you know, but fires, like, kind of died down. Anyways.
Part two later.
No, fires died down. But how you were saying, it's not about finding God. It's about staying consistent and continuing to look for God. Because God is calling you and he's inviting you and you're going to say yes. But then one day you're not going to feel like it anymore. But it's not about what you feel. It's about, like, putting that aside and having faith. Because God has told you all this stuff. So that fire, like, it died down. It, like, I grew tired of the videos. I grew tired of, like, having to feel like I'm not even getting enough views. But then I realized that it's not about me. It was never about me. It was never about, like, what I'm doing. It was never about my story. It was about God's story and how I play into that.
Yeah. And I feel like, about the views, like, it doesn't matter the views. It takes one view for God to touch one person.
Mm-hmm.
All it takes is one person for your ministry to touch someone else. And that is not up to me. That is up to God.
That's also why it's so important to live like Jesus, live like God.
Absolutely.
Because even if the people around you are like, oh, she's so, like, goody two-shoes, so innocent, like, I don't want to be around her. Somebody that sees you and the way you behave is going to be like, wow, I want to be more like her.
Yeah.
Or I want to get closer. I want her to help me find my connection with God. Or I want her to be my example on how I get closer to God, in the way that I connect with God, in the way I can show other people about God. Like, it doesn't even... Who cares about the majority of people? The way you act is going to stick out to somebody.
And at the end of the day, it does not matter what the people around you say. What matters is what God says about you. And God calls you his child. So who cares about what Jimmy John is doing in the corner? Like, it does not matter. And I feel like one thing that you had mentioned earlier, like, that the guy that, or the person that was talking was, like, painting Jesus as someone that hates, someone that is, like, makes people feel like sinners. And, like, that pushes people away. And I feel like I know what you felt, because I've felt it too. Sometimes, like, living like Jesus is talking like Jesus, talking with love first. And a lot of times, like, as Christians, like, once we know God, once we're, like, in the routine of being a Christian, we fall into the habit of being like, oh, well, that's a sin, and, like, you have to repent right now. If not, you're going straight to hell.
Right, and you have, like,
you
so
have to
much
do this.
guilt.
Like, Jesus is coming right now. Like, you have to do this, this, and this, and this, and this. And, like, you just feel like, I'm not going to heaven.
And I feel like it's not even about, like, counting your own sins, because God doesn't count our mistakes. God doesn't count our sins.
That is the most important thing to transmit to someone,
and
to
people
anyone.
fail to say that. Like, he does not count your sins. Like, okay, I accidentally cussed this day, or I listened to secular music, or I wanted to do gossiping.
This. I wanted to do this. I felt like doing that. I had this urge. I wanted to, like, it does not matter to God.
Right?
It does not matter. And that is the most important, like, that is the most important feeling when you are getting to know God again, and when you feel, like, when you know what you have done, you know what you have gone through, you know that you don't feel worthy of him, but yet God still calls you his child. He still loves you. He does not care about what you've done, because he will always forgive you.
Right? And
he will, no matter what, he will always be your redeemer.
And eventually seeking forgiveness doesn't even it feels more like a relief than it is a chore. Like, you sin and you feel so guilty after you sin, like, okay, I have to make it up to God. I need God to forgive me. And then once God forgives you, you're like, okay, now what? But now, like, when you have a deep connection with him and you're deeply rooted with him, these little mistakes you make throughout the day, they're not like, oh, you did this, oh, you did that. Like, they're still sins, but I don't even see, like, mistakes I make, I don't put the label sin. Like, sin is so negative. It's like, oh, you did this and this and that. Like, like, they're mistakes.
You are Satan
it's
if you
sin.
Like,
exactly. God's not going to come back and be like, okay, you committed 70 sins. You committed 70 sins without asking for forgiveness. He knows that sometimes there's things that are sins that we don't even realize are sins, like going on social media on Sabbath. And all this, there's so many ways you can dishonor the Sabbath, and we don't even realize that we're doing it. But it's like, if God were to keep track of how many times we ask for forgiveness,
we're done. No matter how many times we apologize or ask for forgiveness, it will never amount to the amount of times that we have transgressed against God. But again, God does not care. All he cares is that you give him your heart and that you talk to him, be honest with him, because he isn't this like judge. He's not the police. He's not this scary guy. When the Bible says to fear God, it's not to be like scared of him or feel like he's gonna like attack you because
if anything,
you did
it's the opposite.
It's
to
the
look
opposite.
up to him,
It's
respect him, honor him.
Yes. Like it's like yes, like you took the words out of my mouth. Like God does not want you to be scared of him. He wants you to respect him because of the things that he's done and will do in your life. But you also have to know that it's okay. He knows our heart. He knows we're human. He knows we're gonna sin against him. But guess what? The cross already paid for that. Like it does not matter.
What's super emphasized so many times with the Bible is that all sin is equal. And I'm not saying this is an excuse. Like, I'm going to do this because it's the same thing as eating pork. Like, I'm going to go do this because it's the same thing as not respecting the Sabbath. Like, that's not the mindset you should have. But don't beat yourself up for simple sins. Like, we live in a, like, an evil world. Yeah. We're so prone and so easy to sinning that if we keep excusing our sins, we're just gonna get in this endless loop of guilt and like, oh, I need to get better, but then you never take the chance to go get better. Yeah. All sin is equal, but don't use that as your excuse. Yeah. Use it as your way to bring yourself up off the ground. Like, oh, I did this one day. But God thinks it's all equal, so I don't need to beat myself up for it. If God's not going to beat me up for it.
I just need to ask for forgiveness and live like I have been forgived. Yeah. Live like Jesus. Live like how you are trying to if you want to be forgiven by God, you have to forgive. If you want to love like Jesus, you have to love. Exactly. If you want to be loved by Jesus, you have to love. Like, it's a give and take thing. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you've been through. It doesn't matter the things you've done. It doesn't matter if you're guilty of the worst crime possible. God still has room for you in his kingdom, and he still has room to love you, and he will always have room to love you no matter what you have done and no matter what you will do.
Exactly.
Yeah, wow.
Whoa. This is a little rant.
Pastor's up in here.
But, yeah, so right after, like, also, you guys did really good with that.
Oh, thank you.
She didn't even finish yet.
No, what you guys were saying kind of, like, continue the story. But right after I did my stuff, I was kind of like, yeah, I was in a bad place. And I didn't care that I was getting in trouble. I didn't care that, I was going to a Christian school. Like, it didn't matter to me anymore. I was just in a really bad place with myself. Because I was kind of like, what am I worth? Like, really, like, I feel like I have no purpose anymore. Like, I've ruined my life. There's nothing left for me, you know? And so after that, you kind of, like, grow. You realize that God has forgiven you, and you grow in your relationship with God. But that doesn't make you perfect. Again, how you're saying, like, it doesn't make you perfect. Like, you can try, and you can try, and you can try. But because I had done so wrong, I held myself to such a high standard that I was kind of like I can't do anything. Like, I've tried to be I try to be perfect so bad, but the more you, like, raise the bar, the more, like, the more human you become. Mm-hmm. You just sin more, and you beat yourself up for it, and you don't forgive yourself, and now it wasn't the sin anymore. It was that I was, like, the way I held myself to it. And so I still struggle with that a lot. But recently, I feel like God has spoken to me because I feel like I've been, like, holding myself like, Julieta, why would you do that? Julieta, why would you do that? Because now even the smallest thing is so big to me because I've done so wrong. But I, like, recently read a quote, and it was like, well, I don't remember what it said. But I just remember, like, you're not the person you were 2 minutes ago as long as you choose to be who you are right now. If I'm choosing to do good right now in this moment, it doesn't matter who I was yesterday. Like, as long as I wake up tomorrow morning and I choose God because I know that he woke me up today for a purpose, then that's fine. I don't have to worry about what I did yesterday. And some people, like, I don't want it to, like, get in the wrong context of people being like, okay, I can party today and then tomorrow I'll be okay. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say at all. Mm-hmm. Like, I had such a hard time forgiving myself, and that's, like, what was holding me back from what God had for me. God had already forgiven me. The cross is already done. God has already said all this stuff about me, but I was stuck in a box because I was like, no, I can't forgive myself, and I couldn't move forward. But if God has forgiven you, if God has done all this stuff for you, and you can't accept it, it's really saying, like, you don't really forgive me if you can't forgive yourself.
You don't trust him.
Exactly. And so I knew, like, I learned to kind of let it go. And so now, like, people, like, some people will be like, oh, she's so good. She's so good. Like, she's never been through anything. Like, she just chooses God and she's whatever. And it's kind of like, you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I know, like, they say it because they, like, don't experience something as, like, they don't experience God. They don't go and taste God to understand that, like, I feel this way. Like, I feel like I need to worship him and scream and make videos and do all this stuff because he's done this for me. And if he hasn't done anything for you, you won't understand it. If you don't go and seek him, you won't understand it. You have to, like, have your own story. You can't depend. I couldn't depend on my mom to be like, well, God saved my mom, so, of course I can say that. But to me, I wasn't present enough to be like, God saved my mom, and that's how I know God is real. If I was ignorant to that, God had to show me something better. God had to let me, break my own heart. God had to let me remove people out of, he had to remove people out of my life. He had to, break me down before he could teach me better.
Before he could build you up.
And he's going to keep calling you. He's going to keep doing the wake-up calls. I remember the one Bible study we had over the phone. You guys were talking about the people who had a car crash and how some of them might have left and they would have been like, that wasn't God, definitely. But God is still going to let things, like, not let bad things happen, but you're pushing God away more. So bad things are going to happen. But once you realize that God is saving you, he's trying to save you from the bad stuff in the world, because a car crash could have happened. But God is going to turn that into better. And he's going to show you a lesson. He's going to teach you a lesson from that. And it's not only about the people that experienced the car crash. It was about the people who were kind of like, they were saved, Mm-hmm. And so sometimes heartbreak needs to happen for yourself and others to learn from that.
Exactly.
Honestly, that's a very mature statement, because going through heartbreak and knowing what it feels like, sometimes you don't feel like there's a way out. Sometimes you feel like, well, this is where this feeling is going to last forever, and I'm never getting out of this. But we have the grace of God, and God knows what he's doing. He knows what is going to happen, what is going to happen in the future. And I know, like, looking back, you probably felt like there was nowhere to go. When you're in the middle of your guilt, when you're in the middle of your breakdown, you feel like this is it. I have nowhere else to go. Like, I can't go any deeper and it's too far up. But then God reaches out and reaches his hand down to you. And a lot of the times, like, it takes time to see God. It takes time to understand God. And that's okay, because you're not alone. Because one that knows God knows that it's hard to stay with God. It's hard to know that he's fighting every battle, because sometimes you don't feel it. Like, no matter how long you have known the gospel, no matter how long you have known Jesus, sometimes it's hard to feel him fighting with you. It's hard to see what his plan is through this battle. But there is one, and there will always be one. Because once you are out of it, you will be able to see God's hand through it.
Yeah, and also, like, especially during the battles, people are so quick to, when they overcome it, they're so quick to blame God for letting it happen. Like, why would you let this happen, God? Why would you? But they don't thank God for allowing them to overcome it. They're like they think that once they start, I saw this online, that the devil hears, like, everything you ask God for. Everything that you say, the devil hears it. Every time you publicly share God's word or the gospel, the devil hears it. And people fail to realize that after you get good with God, life feels so much more difficult. And there's always going to be, like, a phase where life feels so difficult when you're trying to get good with God. And then you start blaming God. You're like, why would he let all this happen to me? Like, why would he let me feel so depressed? Like, why wouldn't he save me out of this? But we don't stop and think, like, he was battling the devil with what was going through my life. He allowed me to overcome it. And instead of thanking him, we're so quick to be angry with him. Instead of thanking him for forgiving us and being so lenient and patient with us, we're so quick to get upset at him when something bad happens in our life. But when we do something bad and we're part of his story, how do you think he feels?
Yeah.
And he's so quick to be patient with us. And sometimes we're so quick to blame God for the negative things that happen in our life instead of thanking him for allowing us to overcome those things.
Yeah. Like, it's just hard, because I remember a teacher said this once, like, sometimes you don't see it. Like, the best way to imagine, like, life, I guess, is that God is fighting Satan for your soul, for your life, constantly. Imagine, like, there's a battle going on around you where they're literally fighting for you. But like, yes, that sounds negative, but also God is fighting for you. He's going after you. He's reaching out for you. And it's hard to believe that when I have done so much to hurt God and so many reasons for him to just stop fighting. But he still chooses to fight time and again, no matter what. And that's one of the most beautiful things that we know as Christians. And, like, it's the most beautiful feeling, something that gives you so much peace and fulfillment that no matter what I do, the fact that I have given my life to Jesus, I have trusted Jesus with my life, everything will turn out okay. And he will continue fighting for me.
And it's even more amazing when we actually recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
When we wake up in the morning, we're like, thank you, God, for helping us overcome, like, no matter how hard of a challenge, because everyone takes challenges differently. So it could be something someone seems so insignificant, but it's so big for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you taking the time to thank God for helping you, because there's so many little things in our life that bring us stress, and we don't even realize God's fighting that for us as well. Yeah. And he doesn't get tired. Worse. Exactly. He doesn't get tired. He doesn't stop. So why should we get tired and frustrated when God doesn't do that?
Yeah. And it's hard to forgive yourself. It's so hard to forgive yourself because you know your tendencies. Yeah. You know what you're doing. But again, God still forgives. Yeah. Okay. He still forgives.
I'm going to say one more thing.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, this is the spirit. Like, this is where I kind of realized, like, my spiritual growth. So now it's been, like, over a year. And I can say that, like, I've...
like 2 years.
It's been, like, 2 years, yeah. And I've...
It has been a while.
You're a freshman in high school.
I don't know. Well, it's been a while. And there's been a lot of growth. And even after, like, I kind of got close to God, I would always be like, I need to have, like, I need good people in my life, you know? Because I had a season of isolation where it was, like, that one summer after, you know, that God was working on me and that God was also, like, leading me into digital ministry, that God had worked on me. But I was like, I need, like, people who will bring me closer to God. And then Abigail came along. And then slowly...
Abby. We love Abby.
Yeah. We do love Abby. And slowly, I started getting more involved in church. And you guys came along. And I literally, like, you guys don't understand how grateful I am. Because I didn't have friends. Like, I had horrible friends. And now I can have good friends. And I can be like, oh, my gosh, wait. I can compare you guys and be like, my friends sucked. But Kaylin and Lucette, like, are so lovely. And I love them so much. They were, like, my, like, first, like, church friends, you know. Because I didn't have no friends at church. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
This is going to be a cry.
Why are you walking?
Stop. Anyway.
So, don't add me on that list because I won't stop crying.
So, and then after that, I've gotten way more involved in church. And now, like, the first time I went to Vespers to like, Warehouse, it was like, wow, this is real. Like, I worship with other people. Like, I would have never been doing that a year ago. Like, it's so crazy how they collide.
Oh, my God.
All right.
Guys, stop. I can't look at them anymore.
No, I'm not going to stop.
Corta that episode, yeah. No more.
This is God's grace, guys.
Okay, can you guys stop, please?
Right. Tell Julieta to stop.
Stop.
So, like, it's so crazy to think back, like, how God, like, changes stuff, you know? And how your life can take a whole turn.
Right.
Oh, my gosh, I can't.
And that negative change from you switching schools, it seemed like, oh, like, I'm going to lose everything. And look at how much better things have brought you.
How much you've gained.
It's
a lot of
crazy.
times, like, when we're in the middle of, like, so much change, so much, like, defeat, we're like, what more can I lose? But in that moment is when God gives you blessing upon blessing upon blessing that you're like, I don't know what to do with all of this.
And you won't even notice it until you start thanking him.
And I'm so grateful because I didn't have that before. So now I went to late night Vespers last night and I was like, I'm so thankful because I have these friends. Like, I go to FLA now. Like, that was my dream. Like, that was like, I wanted to go to FLA.
Wow. That's the first time I've heard that saying leave somebody's mouth.
That was like my dream, literally. Because I didn't want to go back to public school. I didn't want to go back to, like,
she lived in Timbuktu,
life.
by the way.
Oh, I know. They're
she
so
lived
far.
So far. We're like, what, going to FLA was what, like 45 minutes?
And
going
really
to that city was like for a night, like little hangout. Like you're driving 40 minutes to get there, like
without traffic.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
Oh my god.
But yeah,
you guys are so dramatic. It wasn't even that bad.
Yeah, okay.
you didn't do the drive.
Yeah, you were not. You were on your
I think
phone.
I went to her house once because it was so far.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I go to Philly. It's not as good as I thought I would, but it's amazing still. And
You're still surrounded by Jesus.
You'll
Yes.
enjoy it more once you get to like your senior and junior year, because that's when you'll actually feel connected.
No,
with the
it's
school.
fun.
Like
I
I
like
hated
it.
it freshman year. I was like, get me out of here. And then like junior year, senior year, kind of like okay, like
And then when
it's
you
not as bad.
and then when you graduate, you're like,
And then when you go to college, you realize that you're struggling because
you're struggling. Yeah. But that's for a different episode.
But yeah, and then so yeah, school has started, and so far I really like it, and like it's way bigger like than like my Adventist
Your
little
school was this
school.
big.
Yeah, I
no,
like
but FLA is shrinking right now. Do not get fooled.
her class was like 10 people.
Wow.
and
it
I was
was
class
really-
president.
Yeah, and the whole class was part of the. You had 2 senators, you had the president, your vice president, you had the whole crew.
But yeah, and now I feel like I don't care. Well, I want to say I don't care, but now it isn't like important. Like it isn't as important to me. It isn't a priority for me to make friends. It isn't a priority for me to have a boyfriend. It isn't a priority for me. Like back then, I needed to have friends. I needed to have a boyfriend. I needed to do this. I needed to do that. Now, like everything's so much easier with God. I don't have to worry about my friends because I know God will place the right people in my life. I don't have to worry about grades because I know that like if I put in my part, God will do the rest. I know that like God will put me in the right place. I know that as long as like I have God and I continue to invite Him in my life, He will like lead me. And it's just like once you reflect on it, you're really like, what? This is how God good. What? This is how good God is.
Amen.
And the same thing with my parents. Like once I was like, wow, you were really like there for me. Like you never like held me against my sin when you do like you could have. You could have held me against my sin. You didn't have to forgive me. And it's just like that's why I keep saying like my parents is like a good reflection of what God is. Like I don't think that my experience with God would have been the same if my parents haven't had been so godly. If they wouldn't have been so patient and so forgiving. Now I can't talk. Forgiving, then I don't think it would have been the same. But they were. And so, yeah.
That's
Wow.
a really good
Guys, this is so
testimony.
sentimental.
It's a very vulnerable episode, and I think the next 2 episodes in this series are gonna be. I don't know if I feel like they're gonna be just as vulnerable.
I don't think I'm gonna cry.
I don't know if I'll cry.
She's so like.
We'll see.
You never cry. I don't know why. Like,
I've seen her cry.
I
I've seen those segments.
No.
I cry over everything. But like right now, if I start crying on camera, I'm not gonna stop.
No, I feel like that's the thing. It's the same thing with the yappers. Like, I feel like once you get them started, you can't stop. But it's hard to
So
get
are
them
you
started.
calling her a yapper?
No, not that. I'm kind of comparing.
I think you're the yapper of the podcast.
No, she's definitely the yapper.
No, I know.
Don't. But
Yikes. Anyways,
I feel like I'll cry at everything at any time. Sometimes we'll be sitting here and I'll be like at the
Oh, when you
about
hear
to
my
cry.
testimony, there was a lot of crying.
if I see someone cry, I will cry. I'll just say
No,
that from
sometimes
now.
you'll be talking and you're like, wow, that's so right. And I'm about to start crying. Unless that's like just like you're right
Like,
into her eyes.
yeah.
And I'm like, how are you not about to cry?
Anyways, but
Because
okay.
I've learned to. When we talk about my
We'll talk
testimony,
about it.
You guys will see why I learned to
So
hold my
stay
composure.
tuned for next week and listen in on the next testimony.
Yeah.
It was a little long.
And we
but
updated
it's
our
okay.
posting date, guys.
Yes, we are posting
On
every Friday
Fridays.
now. So keep your eyes peeled, and I hope you guys are watching
Yeah.
every week. Follow the Instagram. Comment down below any questions, concerns. I don't know, anything you want. Like, say hey. Like,
Yeah.
we'd love to say hey.
And our podcast better become your weekend refresh.
Yeah.
Every Saturday after church, I better see some viewer counts going going up. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, like I think this is a good series, so you guys get to know us more, and honestly, like us to each other, because I
Yeah.
feel like even though we started this podcast together and we have been through with each other through our own testimonies,
There's stuff that happens behind the scenes. Like, you know what I
and
mean?
in your head that you don't. Sometimes it's hard to vocalize,
And it also plays a lot of like why we do this too.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, 100%. So yeah, stay tuned.
Especially now that we found out Julieta cries every podcast episode.
Yeah,
Literally almost all of them. And you guys were just so serious about it. I'm like, how are you guys not crying? And I see like my eyes are watering and you guys are just like, yeah.
Maybe it takes the same solution I had.
we'll find out. We'll find out next week or the week after. But anyways, thank you guys for watching, and yeah. We'll see you
Stay
guys
tuned for
next
the
week.
one. Bye.
Oh yeah, please no more crying.
It's okay.
I love you guys so much.
Aww.
Okay.
Oh, my tongue is so green.
Ready?
All right, let's start.
Well, Julieta's a yapper, so we need to really
We'll
have a
see.
time. La, 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 la. And then,
La la la.
be like, okay, guys, episode ended. Time for Lisette or Caitlin's turn. And we just keep swapping.